Hey there, vintage food lovers and cookbook enthusiasts. Welcome back to Forgotten Cookbooks, the place where we dust off culinary treasures and bring their stories back to life. Today, we are going on a delicious journey with a true pioneer of American food, a woman whose name you might not know, but whose creations could possibly be in your pantry right now. Get ready, because we are diving into the legendary 1963 Margaret Rudkin Pepperidge Farm Cookbook. This isn't just a collection of recipes, it's a window into the mind of an incredible woman who started it all, Margaret Rudkin herself. So grab a cup of tea, maybe a Pepperidge Farm's Milano cookie, and let's get cooking. Keep in mind, all the recipes we go through today can be found on our website, moderndayfoodie.com. And we'll also put a link to each recipe in the description of this video. Before we even open this beautiful book, we have to talk about the woman behind the brand, Margaret Rudkin. Her story is truly amazing. It all started back in 1937 during the Great Depression. Margaret was a mother in Fairfield, Connecticut, and she had a son with severe allergies. She was frustrated with the quality of commercially produced bread available at the time. She wanted something wholesome, natural, and truly nutritious for her family. So what did she do? She decided to bake it herself. Her son's doctor recommended the bread to his other patients and encouraged her to sell it to the public. Her first commercial sale was to her local market. Her husband, Henry, a Wall Street broker, began taking loaves of bread with him to New York to be sold in specialty stores. Soon, Pepperidge Farm was established as a great bread company. In the 1950s, on a trip to Europe, she discovered fancy chocolate cookies. She bought the rights to produce and sell them, and the distinctive cookie line was born. Her company continued to expand into products including frozen pastry items, and later, the goldfish snack crackers that we all love today. These crackers were from a Swiss company called Cambly, who still makes their version today. In 1961, she sold the business to Campbell Soup Company for $28 million and became the first woman to serve on its board of directors. She drew on her knowledge and experience to write the Margaret Rudkin Pepperidge Farm Cookbook in 1963, which was the first cookbook to ever make the New York Times bestseller list, and the cookbook we are reviewing today. Our first stop is at Cocky Leek Soup. 3 things made me stop at this recipe. Well, first off, I love leek soup, but I make mine with potatoes and leek and chicken broth and an array of other things. The other thing that made me stop was the title, Cocky Leaky Soup. Cocky leaky? Okay. And the use of prunes. Who uses prunes in soup? So I had to investigate this, why she called this Cocky Leaky Soup. So I looked it up. Cocky Leaky Soup is actually a thing. It is short for cock-a-leeky soup and turns out to be a traditional Scottish chicken and leek soup. Leave it to the Scottish. I say that because I'm Scottish myself. Traditionally, it is made by simmering a whole chicken with leeks and herbs like bay leaves and thyme. The soup can also include ingredients such as rice, barley, and yes, prunes. Though the addition of prunes is a point of debate amongst purists. It's believed to add a natural sweetness to the soup, so it could be good, but probably very cleansing. By the way, if you didn't know, prunes are made of dry plums, specifically certain varieties that are ideal for drying. So they would really add some sweetness to the soup. Also, if you have never cooked with leeks, I highly recommend you do so. I particularly like them sautéed in butter before I use them in my potato leek soup. Along with this recipe, I will also include my potato leek soup recipe on our website. So not only do I have a Scottish background, but I also have an Irish background. And my grandmother was Irish, and she's the one that taught me to bake. And she used to make soda bread all the time. And Margaret, in her book here, has a whole section that's just recipes from Ireland. And so I was very curious about her breads because that's how she got her start and how Pepperidge Farm got its start. So I came across the white soda bread. But when I was a kid, Pepperidge Farm in our household was considered high-end baked goods. My parents used to always buy Pepperidge Farm. I still do today. I love their Milano cookies. Absolutely love their Milano cookies. If you've never had one, I highly recommend you try them. But the one thing that I remember the most from my childhood when it came to Pepperidge Farm was their raisin bread. They had an amazing raisin bread. So I wanted to see what she had in her cookbook for raisin bread. So she doesn't have just a regular old raisin bread recipe, but she does have a raisin soda bread. So I was very curious about this one. So in this recipe, she calls for a half a cup of sugar, 1 beaten egg, 4 tablespoons of butter melted, and a half a cup of seedless raisins or more if you like. So she doesn't really give a whole lot of instruction in the raisin bread part, but she does give instructions in the white soda bread part. She says sift the dry ingredients several times through your fingers, add the milk gradually, mixing well. Have the dough not too dry, turn it out onto a flour breadboard and knead lightly just a few times. Shape into a round flat loaf and cut a deep cross from side to side. Bake on a flat pan in a hot oven for 450 for 45 minutes. So her white soda bread calls for 1 pound of white flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking soda, and 1 cup of buttermilk or sour milk. So growing up, my grandmother, who was from the same generation as Margaret, used to always use sour milk. You know, milk used to go sour a lot more than it does now. And you always had some sour milk in the refrigerator very often, or you'd make it go sour, or you would add a tablespoon of vinegar to sour it up. And there was a lot more baking with buttermilk. If you've never used either one, I highly recommend. The two really are the great makings for great bread. I also suggest potato water. If you've never used potato water, so you basically boil potatoes and take the water or save the water and use it in your baking, it will really give your baked goods a fluffier texture, and especially bread. So if we go back to the raisin soda bread, she doesn't call for soda in this one. But what she does say is use the white soda bread dough recipe that we just looked at, and then add the half a cup of sugar, the 1 beaten egg, the 4 tablespoons of butter, and the half a cup of seedless raisins. So this sounds amazing with the butter and and then if you use buttermilk on top of it, it probably has the greatest flavor. I would actually probably use buttermilk before I would use sour milk, or I would try both. So I'm very excited to make this. And again, if you've never had Pepperidge Farm's raisin bread, I highly recommend that you buy it. I'll put links to these products I'm recommending and this cookbook down in the description and on our website, moderndayfoodie.com. So this sounds wonderful, and I'm excited to try it. So if you're going to be looking for recipes in a Pepperidge Farm cookbook, one thing I'd really like to look up are the cookies. So I was surprised in the index there weren't very many cookies in this cookbook, which is, one of Pepperidge Farm's specialties are their cookies. And there's no recipe for crackers, which is another specialty, hence their fish crackers. I was hoping there was a recipe, like a cheese cracker recipe in there, but there wasn't. But there are a lot of videos online how to make the fish cheese crackers. Anyways, so the cookies I did find were like these extra special cookies and oatmeal cookies, and they all sounded really interesting. But the one that really caught my eye out of the only 4 in the entire recipe were these early American sugar cookies and the sand cookies. I was like, what the heck is a sand cookie? So, like everything I do, I looked it up, and sure enough, it's a thing. I believe a sand cookie, or also referred to as a sand tart, is of Norwegian origin. And it's known also as a sand tart. And I've actually seen pictures of people taking almonds and putting the design of a sand dollar with almonds on top of the cookie, which was really cute. And it's basically a delicate, crumbly, buttery cookie with a texture that resembles, they say, of fine sand. Now, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but it's a thing, so they must be good. These cookies are often simple, and they rely on just a very few key ingredients like flour, butter, and sugar, and are frequently flavored with ingredients like nuts or citrus zest, which sounds wonderful. So depending on the specific recipe, they can be rolled thinly. Those are the ones I've seen where they're rolled thinly and then flattened, and decorated with toppings like cinnamon, sugar, and nuts. And so like if you decorate a sand dollar pattern with your almonds and sprinkle it with cinnamon, they look great. Or they can be rolled into balls and coated with powdered sugar. So it sounds a lot like a butter cookie. I'm just very curious about the texture. So let me know down in the comments if you've ever had a sand tart cookie or a sand cookie. Look at Margaret's recipe for sand cookies. So she calls for 1/2 pound of butter, 1 1/4 cup of unbleached sifted white flour, 1 1/2 teaspoons of double-acting baking soda, 1/3 cup of granulated sugar, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So I won't go into the instructions because, again, I'll put the recipe on my website, Modern Day Foodie. But the way she makes these is that she places them on a buttered cookie sheet, making 18 balls. So she makes 1-inch balls. So she makes them that way. And if you want them flattened, either they're going to come out as balls, and if they don't, you can always flatten them with a fork if you wanted to. But with that much butter, they probably come out flat. I mean, she calls for 1/4 pound of butter. So, but they sound marvelous. And I would just love to try these. And, again, let me know down in the comments if you've ever had these kind of cookies before, especially if you're of Norwegian or come from Finland background. I'm sure you've had them before, but they definitely sound like a regular old butter cookie, because those can be, kind of sandy, grainy, the kinds that come in the blue tins. That's what I'm thinking that these are. So let me know a little bit more about this cookie if you know down in the comments. And there you have it. From a small kitchen in Kentucky to a national food giant, Margaret Redkin's journey is a fantastic reminder that the best recipes often come from the heart. Let us know down in the comments what your favorite Pepperidge Farm product is. And don't forget to subscribe so you can see more deep dives into these vintage cookbooks. We invite you to watch all our vintage recipe videos, from our Eating Like a President series to browsing vintage cookbooks.